Hey YouTube, it is Sunday, April 18th. I'm going to wing another video. I had a gentleman send me an email with a bunch of questions relating to my PCT hike. The ones that I perused through seemed like they might be useful to other people. I didn't actually read through all of the questions, but there's a lot of them. So I figured it'd be easier just to make a video answering these questions for him, and maybe some of the answers will help you. So the first question is, did you have paper topo maps with you? Which one? I do have gut hooks on my iPhone, love it. No, I did not carry any paper maps. I only used gut hooks. That's pretty much all I needed. I know some people did carry some paper maps, but I did not. I have a Garmin Mini, also mainly to text my wife. Was the forecast info generally pretty good? I noticed she said it was not accurate at times. Yeah, it was hit or miss. I believe it gave percentages, like, I don't know, percent chance of rain. I haven't thought about this in so long. It would say like 10% chance of rain that day. And after a while, you get so many weather updates, you kind of learn to read the Garmin updates. So I think it said, if it would say 10% chance of rain, you would just assume it was 100%. So I would waterproof my pack that day. And by waterproof, I mean I would use a trash bag or two to line my pack to keep everything dry. But I packed my pack pretty much the same way every day. Sometimes I was lazy and just kind of stuffed my trash bags down in the bottom. They're not super accurate, but they were nice to have. Your best weather update was just looking at the sky, and if you saw clouds coming, you would either quickly waterproof your pack or shelter down in some trees, which I did once up on the one mountain with the hailstorm. I kind of saw the weather coming and jumped under trees. When you had cell service, what websites gave you the best weather and fire info? I didn't really check the weather and fire via my phone. A lot of information is passed by word of mouth on the trail, which was generally good enough for me. As far as the fires go, if the sky wasn't smoky and it generally looked okay, I didn't question it. It did get around on trail very quickly if there was something ahead of you that you needed to worry about. Any particular Facebook pages you'd recommend for current trail conditions? I don't do Facebook, but thinking I need to in order to get good info while on trail. Yes, so my situation was slightly different because of the pandemic. The PCT class of 2020 Facebook page normally is where most people would go. However, there was a lot of hate last year for us hikers being on trail and hiking through the pandemic. So that page got a lot of just useless information. What came out to be the biggest help for me was there was a Facebook page called Still Hiking Class of 2020 PCT. And that one was moderated really well. So anyone posting useless stuff was immediately shut down. It was an excellent source of updates for us hikers still on the trail. I don't know what's out there this year. I think I did see a Still Hiking Class of 2021 Facebook page before I got off Facebook. But it seems to be more acceptable this year to be hiking than last year. So start there, Class of 2021 Facebook page. If it's too negative, there might be a Still Hiking, although I doubt it. What device did you use for music? Would you recommend it or something else? I used my iPhone 8 for everything. It was my camera, it was my music source. We had, at the time it was Google Music. We had a Google Music subscription, which I would download music when I was in town, and then I could listen to it without streaming or using internet. It did use a lot of battery, so I have a 20 milliamp hour battery bank, which I charged my phone just about every night on trail. If you recommend an Android device, can you download Apple Music? We pay for it onto an Android device. Recommend any particular earbuds? So I'm not a tech savvy person at all. You probably have learned that from my very, very basic YouTube videos. I'm an iPhone person, so no, I don't recommend Android. And in fact, I make fun of my husband for his Android all the time. Whenever he has an issue, I say, get an iPhone. As far as earbuds, I use just regular Apple earbuds. At one point on trail, I put them through a washing machine or they broke or something, so I picked up a $10 pair from CVS in Mount Shasta. No, particular great audio quality is not something I felt important to me. Did you ever build fires? What do you recommend to start a fire? I think I built a fire twice, maybe 3 times in 123 days. I built one once just after the snow, before the Sierras, but I didn't build it. I came up on a group that already had it going. I built one just after the Sierras, mid-California, and the land is so dry that the fire started right up. Didn't require anything to start it, and I think that you'll find that true for majority of the trail. You won't need anything to start a fire. Cheetos burn really well. Doritos burn really well. So if you're having difficulty, that would work for you. Also important to note, because I think you're hiking, where did you say you're hiking? I don't remember. I think you said you're hiking Washington. But if you're hiking it later than July, don't start a fire. There's wildfires everywhere and it'll be warm. You won't need a fire. Pay attention to fire regulations. Oh, California has a fire permit too. So I did have to get that, which was taking a little test. You learned a few things about fire safety, and there's that. I have a quilt and a puffy. Any advice on how to wash them on trail? Haven't washed them before. I didn't wash them. I was on trail 123 days. I didn't mind the slight funk. In fact, you kind of get used to the smell of your puffy. My quilt, I don't think really smelled, or if it did, I didn't smell it. I did wash my puffy when I got home because the smell on that was real. I just squeezed all the air out of it. I zipped it up and I put it in a bucket with warm water and downwash. Just washed it up really well. And then threw it in the dryer, zipped with dryer balls, and that helped redistribute all the down. Some people on trail with the synthetic puffies, I know did wash them in the towns, and I was kind of jealous. Although even when you washed it, it still had an armpit funk to it, I think. But yeah, the synthetic ones, people washed in washing machines, threw in the dryer, and they claim it was just fine for them. I don't have a synthetic. I'll be using a Resmond Air Mini CPAP and Medtronic Pilot 24 light battery. Did you see any solar chargers on trail that you'd recommend? First of all, as a nurse, I have to say I really like you because you're taking your sleep apnea seriously. So carrying a CPAP on trail, gold star. I like you. Medtronic Pilot 24 light battery. I'm not familiar with what that is. I carried an Anchor 20,000 milliamp hour battery bank, which served me well. I had no issues with running out of battery, with the exception of the Sierras when I went about 10 days without resupplying. Did you see any solar chargers on trail that you'd recommend? I think the entire trail, I've only seen one person, maybe two, using a solar charger. I think the consensus is they're not really worth the wait. I did see a few solar chargers in hiker boxes, so that kind of confirms maybe it's not worth the wait. But given that you have some devices that need charging probably daily, might be worth looking into. There was recently an article published by a hiker where they went over all of the different solar chargers and what was best. I will link that in the description down below for you to check out. I'm thinking about a duplex tent and willing to deal with condensation. If you saw any on trail, were the users happy with the duplex, or would you recommend a different tent? The duplex users I saw on trail, not one of them had complained. I think everyone was satisfied with the duplex, hands down. Even though I used a double wall tent, I still had condensation issues, but I would wake up in the mornings most of the time before it really started getting warm and it started dripping on me, so I didn't have an issue. It was kind of annoying to dry out your tent midday, but it was so dry that it dried out in 10 minutes flat in the sun. So yeah, stick with your duplex. What would you recommend putting in a medicine bag? Since you're a nurse, you have instant credibility. I think you mentioned Benadryl and Tylenol. Thanks. You kind of have to take this with a grain of salt though, because I carried very minimal because I felt as though I had the knowledge base to kind of make do with a lot less. It does you no good if you've got a whole lot and really don't know how to use it the best. So yes, I did carry Benadryl. That can be a life-saving medication. I did not carry an EpiPen. However, if you do have a severe reaction to bee stings that you know of, I would highly recommend you carry an EpiPen. That could save your life. I also carried ibuprofen just for aches and pains, inflammation. I thought it was really cool to see how well ibuprofen worked on the trail. You take ibuprofen back home for like a minor headache and ache here, and you're like, do I feel better? On the trail, I could take 200 milligrams of ibuprofen and I knew I could just feel it working. It was fantastic. But yeah, I did carry a lot of ibuprofen. You need to be careful with that though, because you can cause stomach ulcers. So if you have any issues with that, make sure you carry a PPI, Protonix, one of those. I also carried Imodium, so an anti-diarrheal, because if you get Giardia, that's going to be no fun, or some other water or food illness causing diarrhea. You don't want to deal with that. I also carried, I had 2 Zofran pills left over. Zofran is an anti-nausea medication, and it did come in very, very helpful. There was one day, was it Man-Eaten Lake? It had a really weird name where I just felt terrible, felt nauseous all night long, thought I was gonna poop, thought I was gonna puke, had no idea what was happening. So I took a Zofran at night and that helped me sleep. You can't get oral Zofran over the counter, so you can't carry that unless you already have it. But yeah, I made do with just Benadryl, ibuprofen, and Imodium. Did you carry anything for poison oak leaves? I don't get poison, so no. I think I had it enough as a kid to become immune to it, and I really didn't run into poison oak, with the exception of coming down into Belden Town. So coming down into Belden Town, it was so overgrown. There was so much poison oak. I think I may have gotten a little bit of it, but I didn't need anything for it. So no, I didn't carry anything for poison oak. How did you treat foot blisters? Prevention. You treat them with prevention. You do everything possible to not get them. I was a fan of Injinji toe sock liners with a pair of Darn Toughs over them. People swore by that. I would also wash my socks every single night. A clean pair of socks without dirt and dust in it, well, clean as it can be on trail, did a huge service to my feet. I did, if you remember, get a really bad blister in the beginning of the trail on the bottom of my heel, and I attribute that to my ultra lone peaks. I really couldn't do anything about that one once it was starting, but I did come up with, I used some cotton and created a circle around the blister and kind of offloaded it. People on trail are a fan of KT tape. So we would wrap KT tape around our trekking poles, and you could put KT tape on areas you felt were hot spots that you were getting rubbing to prevent them from starting. Early on, I tried the whole trick with where you take a needle and thread and you run a string through that layer of skin that has the bubble of the blister before the blister pops. Because once the blister pops, it's bad news, sets you up for infection. So I tried this whole string through the blister thing, and the string is supposed to act like a drain. It did kind of drain the blister, but I don't think that it helped heal it or prevent the blister from popping open. So if you've heard of that string through the needle through the blister thing, I don't know. I tried it, didn't work. But prevention, I can't stress that enough. I ended up having to switch shoe brands altogether. I switched to Topo Ultra Ventures, and that helped with my blisters. I don't think I got any blisters once I switched shoes. If heaven forbid you get bit by a rattlesnake, what do you recommend? Should I carry something with me to treat it? Would you activate the Garmin Mini SOS? As a nurse, I'm not familiar with rattlesnake bites. We don't get those in my ER, but yes, I would activate the SOS. That's one situation where I don't have experience. Yep, SOS, hands down. As far as carry something to treat it, I don't really know. Can you get your hands on anti-venom? SOS. Did you carry sunscreen for the whole trail or just initially till you had a tan? I carried it the entire trail. I hated putting sunscreen on, but I did. I also carried my sun umbrella, which I thought that I was gonna ditch after the desert. I ended up keeping that the entire trail, and I'm thrilled with that decision because there were many, many burn zones in Northern California, Oregon, and Washington where you just have complete sun exposure. You could put sunscreen on, but I kind of thought it was easier just to have my long sleeve sun shirt. That was like SPF 30. I did carry sun gloves, which I got rid of after the Sierras, or maybe even before the Sierras. I think I ditched them in Kennedy Meadows, so just before the Sierras. But sun gloves were a game changer. Yes, highly recommend sun gloves if you're pale and freckly like me. I carried sun leggings in the desert so I didn't have to put sunscreen on my legs, but I did put sunscreen on my face every single day. I did carry sunscreen the entire trail, but I didn't use it some days because I would use the umbrella and I just didn't want that sticky feeling, but I always carried it. How do you make a ramen bomb? I'm cooking challenged. How do you actually cook it? Boil 2 cups of water and add. I love this question. Ramen bombs are easy. You can't screw them up. And to this day, I'm not sick of ramen bombs. I haven't actually made any since I got back home. But if I had to go hike and eat a ramen bomb, I would not complain because I wouldn't let myself buy Pop-Tarts, ramen, mashed potatoes. There might be one other thing. I said I'm not buying any of that until the midway point of the trail. So I didn't discover ramen bombs until halfway. But to make a ramen bomb, you just make ramen. Doesn't really matter how much water is in there. Water's good for you, however much water you have on hand. And then there's lots of ways to do it, but I liked to add instant mashed potatoes to it, whatever kind I had on hand. So either the cheesy kind or the bacon cheesy kind. So you add the instant mashed potatoes to the ramen once it's cooked, stir that up, and depending how much mashed potatoes you put in, you could make it like a creamy soup, or you could make it like really thick and just like a dense carb bomb. I don't know. But those are the two main ingredients for me, ramen and instant mashed potatoes. And then I would add in whatever else I had on hand. So that might be pepperoni, Cheetos, Fritos. Some people would add in cheese, like Parmesan cheese. What else did I add in? Lots of spices. So Bohemian carried this spice called tahine on trail, and it was like a spicy chili lime. Fantastic in a ramen bomb. I was also a fan of bacon bits, so I'd throw bacon bits in there. Some people carried like spinach. You could put spinach in there, make it kind of healthy, but there's really no recipe for a ramen bomb. The basis of ramen and mashed potatoes, and then you add in literally anything else. I think I even added tuna packets, chicken packets, the barbecue ones. It's all fantastic. Love ramen bombs. What did you use for a food bag? What kind would you recommend? Ooh, show and tell. Let me go get it. Hubby went hiking this weekend for 2 nights, and I'm very protective over the stuff I took over on the PCT. It all kind of has sentimental value. So I wouldn't let him take any of my stuff. Sorry, Dan. But food bag. I used a Z-Packs Dyneema food bag. It's their standard food bag. It's a roll top, has Velcro. I'm a fan of it. It's not any of those scent-proof ones. It's nothing too fancy. I think it was like 30 bucks. But it is fairly waterproof. It's seam sealed. So it was nice to know that if my pack got wet or it rained through my trash bag, which only happened maybe once or twice, it got damp inside. Everything in my food bag stayed dry. It's also wide on the top, so I could see what was in the bottom pretty well. Yeah. It's also a thicker material. So Z-Packs also sells other stuff sacks. So here's another stuff sack by Z-Packs. I ended up using this for clothing and my quilt. It's waterproof, it's seam sealed. It's the same size actually as the food bag, but it's a thinner material. So the food bag I thought is a better stuff sack. I don't know. It also made a great pillow. So I ditched my pillow and I would often use my food bag as my pillow. All you wilderness safety people who are gonna shun me for that, I live to tell about it. Never had any mice at my head or bears at my head that I know of. But yeah, you don't need anything special for a food bag. I think just plain Ziploc bags would be fine too. Like the gallon ones. Do you recommend keeping your food bag in your tent or in your vestibule? What should you do and what do we do are two different things. I kept it in my tent every single night. With the exception of the Sierras, I had it in my bear barrel and I put that out away from my tent with a large rock on it. But yes, I kept it in my tent. I don't know that I would ever keep it in my vestibule. That's just asking for mice, although I guess the mice are gonna chew through your food bag outside your tent as opposed to chewing into your tent and then getting into your food. If you're really concerned about mice, you can just hang your food bag, carry some string, and that should help. I like carrying a smart water bottle on a shoulder strap. I think I'd hydrate best if I had a tube in it with a bite valve. Did you see any you'd recommend? I noticed Bohemian had one, couldn't find his online. Oh, I wish I had one of those. They're pretty easy to make, I think. Mari Johnson has a video on how to make one. I will link that in the description down below. But yes, I think I would probably drink more if I did have that there. I did have the water bottle strap on my, or the water bottle holder on my pack, which I thought was really nice. I would recommend that. But yeah, if you can make one of those, go for it. I haven't warmed up to trekking pole straps. Won't use them going downhill. Want to be able to drop them quickly if I start to wobble sideways. If it's a steep hill, I'm guessing straps aren't used. It seems all of you experienced hikers use your straps though. I'm giving up a lot of efficiency, wasting energy by removing straps. Show and tell once again. I will be right back. Whew, ran down in the basement. So I am no professional when it comes to hiking. Before the PCT, I never used trekking poles. So everything I know about trekking poles, I kind of learned along the way. But the big thing with trekking poles is I think a lot of people actually use them wrong. Check out a couple YouTube videos on them. I use the Black Diamond Alpine Carbon Cork. They're labeled left and right. There's a little L here. So how to hold them? You actually put your hand up through the bottom and then grab it like that. I don't know how well it's showing up. So hand through the bottom and then hold it that way. Which, if you feel like you're gonna fall and you're worried about stability, you just drop the pole and you can use your hand still. I did almost fall a few times. I never ate it real bad, but yes, and then you have it. And also you kind of get bored. Sometimes you drag your poles. Sometimes you learn trekking pole tricks and you start spinning your trekking poles and stuff in the boredom. But yeah, if you're holding them correctly, hand through the strap through the bottom and wrap over the top, you can drop it if you feel like you're gonna fall and you have your hands still. Oh, and you also said you want to be able to drop your trekking pole if you wobble sideways. Trekking poles also really help you if you're going to fall. So the few times that I did almost fall, I caught myself with my trekking pole. So I would not recommend removing the straps. I don't think I met anyone that removed the straps, maybe one person, but wait to remove them. Start using them, and if you find they're really that big of a nuisance, just cut them off then. But no, I think you'll learn to like them. I'm planning on the same resupply towns as you, I believe. Trout Lake, White Pass, Cracker Barrel, Snoqualmie, Leavenworth, Stehekin. Based on your experience, where should I send resupply boxes in those cities? Post office, hotel, convenience stores, or some other place? I'm gonna link a website for you to check out down below. It has where to send it to and the address. And that's what I used. But Trout Lake, I did not send a resupply box. It was a little more expensive, but I thought that their variety was just fine. White Pass, Cracker Barrel, I did send a resupply box. You don't need to. I thought they had plenty there that you could make do with. But for ease, it was really nice to just pick up a box. Snoqualmie, I did send myself a box there as well. And I sent these boxes from towns along the trail. So like when I was in Bend or one of those bigger towns, I would make a box of food I wasn't sick of yet, and I would mail it ahead to that town. I don't think you'll need a box for Snoqualmie. There is 2 stores you could buy from. You can definitely make do unless you have some sort of food restriction. Leavenworth, I love that town. No, you don't need to send a box to Leavenworth. They have grocery stores. That is a very, very fun, cute town to stay in. Stehekin. A lot of people say they do not need to send one there, but I thought it was kind of nice to have a box sent there. Their one store was very small. It didn't have a lot of variety, and it was just kind of nice to be able to pick up a box there. The post office had a little bit of strange hours, and I got there on a holiday weekend, so I had to hustle to make it before they closed for the holiday. But I would send a box to Stehekin again, to their post office. Did you notice if denatured alcohol is available in all these places? I was planning on my Trail Designs stove setup. No idea. I did not use denatured alcohol stove. I used the little fuel cans. My stove setup was very basic. So I had a BRS stove, and I would recommend going this route. It's very, very cheap. So this is my stove. This is all of my cooking setup right here in this tiny little bag. So it's BRS, it's made in China. It lasted me the entire trail without any issues, but it's super tiny, weighs a couple ounces. If you're willing to give up your denatured stove, I'd go this route. Look how cute it is. Just fold these out. And you screw that into a fuel can. You could find the fuel cans, no real issue along the trail. There was a fuel shortage, so some places it was tight. I wasn't sure if I would make it to the next town without running out of fuel. Never ran out of fuel. Bohemian actually had an adapter that you could put on the top of an old fuel can, and the hiker boxes all through the towns had loads of half-used fuel cans. There was just an overabundance. You could honestly go the entire trail without ever buying fuel if you get one of those fuel adapters that you screw onto your can, and there's directions with it. Bohemian did it the few times that we used it for me. But one can is cold, one can is room temperature. You screw the adapter on, and both cans kind of attach, and it fills. So the fuel can that was half empty that you found on the hiker box, the fuel then goes into your can, so you have a full fuel can. Also in this little cute stove bag, I had my mini Bic. Little tiny thing, and it all fit right in here. So a BRS stove. In an emergency, apart from pressing SOS on the Mini, if there is cell service, are there any particular phone numbers hikers use to contact emergency services or rangers? I don't know. I think if you had service and you really needed to contact someone, you could probably look up the source or whoever you want to call. I do know that, I think it was Bohemian, used the SOS button on his Garmin Mini. And when you press the SOS, the responder sends you a text message. And Bohemian had responded, hey, he just saw lightning strike a mountain and now there's fire right where he's at. So he wasn't in an emergency situation. However, a fire had just started from lightning, and so he was able to notify the appropriate people, or at least use the SOS to notify them so that they could come put out the fire. What did you use to take still pics and video? For still pics, I used my iPhone 8, and for video, I also used my iPhone 8. Do you recommend them? Yes, I loved having my iPhone 8. I'm not tech savvy in the slightest, So to have everything in one area was nice. However, they say don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if my iPhone were to break or have an issue, I would have been in deep doo-doo. But it was really simple. Not being tech savvy, I liked having it all on my phone. At the end of the night, I could lay in my tent and just use iMovie to cut the video clips and put them together. I'm not a social media person actually, but I'm thinking of doing something for a couple grandkids. Yes, definitely do that. 100% do that. You will not regret it. It's fun to, at the end of the day, learn to use iMovie and just kind of figure it out on the go. And it's even more fun to look back at my videos. And if I ever have grandkids one day, I hope that they watch my videos and they're like, man, grandma was so cool. Nashville is pretty flat. I've been doing a lot of stairwell climbs with a 20-pound weight vest. Hey, that's what I did. I did lots of running with a weight vest, a 20-pound vest. If it gets the heart rate up and stays up till going, it gets the heart rate up and it stays up till going back down. Would you seem that to be helpful prep? Yes, absolutely. That's what I did. Also, have been hiking local trails between 9 and 22 miles, mostly flat, unfortunately. That's okay. It's miles. Break in those shoes, use those leg muscles to walk. That's excellent. My focus is getting ready for the first big climb out of Cascade Locks. Oh, that was a fun climb. Been picturing that 3,500 foot climb in 8 miles or so. Would you recommend something else? I'm not a runner. No, what you're doing is perfect. You use what you can. No one says you have to do those 8 miles in a couple hours. You can take your time. You can take breaks. In fact, I recommend taking breaks. Don't do it all at once. Don't beat yourself up. It's a fun climb. It's pretty. You're doing everything right. So, good work. The Canadian border will probably still be closed in August when I plan to finish, so I'll need to hike back to Harts Pass like you did. Did you learn of any way to reliably get a ride from Harts Pass to some airport, or just plan to hitchhike best you can? Any trail angels that shuttle hikers from Harts Pass to somewhere for a fee? We were gonna have Rafiki's friend come pick us up, but that plan didn't work out. I got really lucky with meeting a very nice lady who offered to take me back to Seattle. However, I did look up some alternatives, including a shuttle that would pick us up on Harts Pass and take us to Seattle, but I think that shuttle was like hundreds of dollars. It was really, really expensive, which if you gotta pay it, you gotta pay it. But I recently reactivated my Facebook just because I'm doing a bunch of stuff. More on that Facebook thing later, if I remember. But on the Facebook page, there will be people posting and asking, can someone pick me up here? Do you know of any shuttles available? There'll be great resources on there, and you can use the little search thing on Facebook. So you go on to the Facebook page, PCT Class of 2021, and there's a little search bar and you type in Harts Pass, and that'll give you a whole bunch of other people asking for rides as well. Also, I did see someone who is starting a shuttle service from, I think it's Mazama, which is at the base of Harts Pass. But getting down from Harts Pass, I don't think you're gonna have trouble with. We had a little bit of trouble last year just because of COVID. No one wanted to offer rides, and there weren't too many hikers up there anymore. But you're gonna be there in, would you say August? Yeah, August. So there's gonna be plenty of day hikers. You might have to wait like an hour or 2 or 3 until one comes through who's willing to take you down. But the hardest part is getting from Harts Pass down to the bottom where there's a road. Once you get down to that road, you could probably pretty easily hitchhike to where you gotta go. But I know there's definitely some shuttles that'll pick you up once you're down at the base in Mazama Village for a fee. I've heard cheese can last for a week, even in the summer. may get oily on the outside but still edible. Is that your experience? Good question. Oh my gosh. I didn't actually carry a lot of cheese. Where was that? Right before Snoqualmie. I was coming down into it and there was a physician hiking up with a bunch of people, and his friend offered me those round cheeses in wax. What are they called? I think Baby Bells. And that was the first time I had ever had a Baby Bell cheese. My grandmother had them in her fridge when I was growing up as a kid, and I thought, oh, that's kind of weird, cheese and wax, gross. So I never had them. But when you're a starving hiker and someone offers you food, you take it. And let me tell you, I wish I carried Baby Bell cheese earlier in the trail with the wax around it. I think it may have gotten like a tiny bit slimy. But yeah, it kept, you would resupply every 4 to 5 days. It would easily last 4 days. Is it still edible? Is that your experience? So yeah, in my limited experience, it was edible. I think I carried cheese out of town, out of Bend, to make cheese and salami sandwiches on bagels. That was so good. I would usually eat the cheese first, so I would have all my cheese demolished in like 2 days just because I was so hungry. And cheese was so good. There was something about the fat and the protein that I just craved. If you can think of any advice for a noob, please let me know. I don't know. I hope this video was helpful. There might be some useful stuff in there. I'm totally open to answering more questions for people, either in the comments or if you send me an email with like 28 questions like this gentleman did, I might make a video. Yeah, that was kind of fun. Oh, back to the whole Facebook thing I said I would mention. So when I got off trail, when I got home, I deactivated my Facebook just because it was overwhelmingly negative. And after being away from people for so long, getting online and seeing people still yelling, stay home, and just all the COVID stuff, false COVID information, I couldn't mentally handle it. So I deactivated my Facebook for many months. I recently reactivated it just because I'm selling some things online, and I've found that that's the easiest platform that a lot of people use. Not socially using Facebook. I am on Instagram. I do like perusing Instagram, something about all the pictures. You can kind of pick and choose what you see. I get lots of memes and dog pictures and just happy stuff. But yeah, I'm on Facebook temporarily. If I think of any more useful links, I will put them down below. Uh-oh, my husband's calling again just in time. Gotta go.